The topic for today is Brainpower Breathwork, and we'll get into it. I will say what it is. But for now, let me introduce myself and tell a little bit more about what I do and why I'm here with you today. My name is Daria Tsvenger. I'm a friend of the Happiness Planner. I'm a mindset expert. And the reason I became a mindset expert is because I was severely depressed for like a year, and it was a very dark time in my life. And I didn't know what was going on with me, because the way I used to be before the depression and the way I started my being when I was depressed, it was totally two different personalities. And I started to investigate like what was going on with me and why my brain and my body reacted a certain way to circumstances in my life. And then I realized that so many things that happen in our life, they belong to our mindset. So the way we think, what thoughts we process, what mental models we have, how we operate in our brain and in our mind, this is basically the bricks, and from these bricks our life is created. So that's how I started to dig deeper into neuroscience, the science how the brain works, neuropsychology, and basically just basic science of behavior, because it was so interesting to see how I was reacting to different situations and circumstances in my life. And then when I was acquiring this knowledge, I studied at Stanford University. I did yoga teachers training, I did meditation training, breathwork training, and little by little, I started to see myself in a much more brighter place, because I started to have this understanding why I think what I think, why I feel what I feel, and it became easier to cope with daily stress, daily like job requirements, and basically daily life became much brighter for me. And this is how I embarked on this path of sharing my journey and sharing my experience, in hopes that it would help other people who find themselves in the places where they don't want to be anymore. I'm a founder of the Dream Sprint. It's a personal growth program which essentially takes people from not knowing what to do or being bored or procrastinating to actually take actions and doing something that brings them closer to their dreams. I was featured in publications like Forbes, Vogue, Thrive Global. I'm a guest on many TV shows around Los Angeles and beyond, and it literally sparks my heart to share this knowledge and to facilitate these transformations for people all over the world. The agenda for today's webinar, for the first 20 minutes, I will be sharing different interesting facts about your brain and how it works and what we can do in order to make it more productive and resilient. Then another 20 minutes, like 15 to 20 minutes, we'll practice breath work. I with you 2 different breathwork tools, and we'll practice them all together. Will be so much fun. And then the last 20 minutes we'll allocate for questions. I love answering questions, and so when you are going through this presentation right now and through breathwork exercises and some question pop up, either write it down or just remember it, because you will have an opportunity to ask anything, or even share a brief situation that is happening in your life right now, and I may give you this live coaching exercise. Okay, so here is our brain. Of course, it's a schematic view. In reality, our brain is kind of like gray and looks like a piece of meat, but here it looks really fancy. That's why I love this image. And let's now do a little experiment. Show your hands like that, put your hands like that. Then interlace your hands and hide the smallest finger, just hide it like that. So this is the size of your brain. And when the first time I was on my classes at Stanford, our lecturer showed us that, I was really surprised, because it seems small. It seems really small. But this is the reality. Our brain is small. Our skull is very thick. And this tiny device, the size of, of our 2 hands together, does so much things to regulate our body, to regulate our emotions, to basically control our stress response and basically create the emotional states we are in. So this is a machine which produces your emotions and your feelings. Of course, our body is used too, but this is kind of like the major physical device that we have. And it's so fascinating to think about this because, you know, we haven't created this brain. This brain was just given to us. And whatever you believe in, either God created us or evolution or any other thing, or like aliens came on the earth and, you know, started to live, and this is how humans were created. Whatever it is, we just have to learn how our body and brain works, because we have almost no control over it. We don't choose how we look, you know, in general. We don't choose what height we are. And by the way, I'm pretty small, I'm 5.2. So, and I really wanted to be taller when I was a kid. But at some point I realized that I didn't choose this. And that's why the body that I'm in, it's the best body that could possibly be for me. And I think this is the attitude that we should cultivate. Anything that bothers us in ourselves, it can be used as an advantage. And this is the narrative that you can create. Okay, facts about the brain. Our brain consists from neurons, and neurons are these tiny cells in our brain, which every time we fire a thought, neuron exchange some kind of a biological material with another neuron. And through this biological material, electricity flows. So basically our thoughts are electrical, which is amazing. That's why we can notice how different thoughts are coming into our brain, you know, in different environments. And this is how different types of electricity flows too. And it is really interesting to notice, because when our brain is in one state of mind, we feel, well, our whole body feels different. But when we shift ourselves to another state of mind, we literally can track how our brain physically changes the way our neurons connect with one another. We have 86 billions of neurons in our brain. And this is an insane number, because such a tiny thing can have such a big density. And every has 10,000 connections to its neighbors. So imagine if you were to be friends with like 10,000 neighbors of yours. I think it would require a lot of strength and a lot of time to be aware about all these connections. But this is how complex and how sophisticated our neurons are, that they can sustain up to 10,000 connections. So we have, you see this big number in the left corner of the screen, this much we have connections. I think it's like 86 trillion. So like, what's the next number? It's literally incomprehensible at this point. And we have more connections than stars in the whole Milky Way galaxy, which is pretty mind-blowing. So our brain is as complex as the whole galaxy itself. And for me, it was so fascinating, because it's a shame that we don't know how our brain works, although we have such an incredible machine. Probably we should, you know, take all advantages that it gives us. Right now, think for a moment, how many thoughts do you have per day? By the way, let me shrink the video on the right side. I don't know if it bothers people or not. Okay, hope for now it's not. How many thoughts do you have per day? Picture some number in your mind. Now will be the answer. We have 70,000 to 90,000 thoughts per day, every single person on average, and we make 35,000 decisions. Isn't it crazy? We make decisions 35,000 times a day. But what's really interesting is that 95% of these decisions are completely unconscious. So for example, the way I'm moving my hands right now, of course, everything is a decision, but not for the conscious part of my brain. The way I am, this is how my hands move. I do not control how I move my hands right now. They're moving in a pattern which is very unique to me. So you have all this uniqueness in you, but this uniqueness is automatic uniqueness. But of course, some, not productive and some bad things can be in these unconscious decisions. And of course, our decisions are, basically building blocks of our life. And if we are unconscious of 95% of the decisions, our unconscious part of the brain does them anyways. And what is interesting, that our unconscious part of the brain has some kind of a direction where it goes. So if we do not know what direction our unconscious part of the brain goes, then we can be really surprised where we find ourselves in really unfortunate situations. So it's really important to track and to be aware of your automatic thoughts, micro decisions and behaviors in order to see where your life goes. Because from the conscious part, we have such a little control. That's why the world of subconscious is much more powerful. Also interesting facts that 90% of the thoughts, 90% from 70 to 80,000 thoughts per day are the same from day to day. And this is what makes people so unique. And this is why people have such different lives. Because can you imagine if you're making the same decisions over and over, you can't expect a new result. So in order to thrive in your life, to grow in your life, to kind of like access the next step, you should become aware of what kind of thoughts you process every single day. And this is where your life is, where your same thoughts are. Because, and why do we have so many same thoughts? It's because our bodies and our brains, they are designed to conserve energy. And every single new thought, it requires energy. But the repetitive thought, it doesn't require any energy. That's why your brain is really interested to make all processes that you do automatic. Picture the time, how many times you brush your teeth in the same way, how you eat, how you sit, how you walk, how you stand. All of this is the same things over and over again. The same thing with the thoughts. Thoughts also are the same from day to day. And 80% of these thoughts are negative. And this is also easily explainable. We have such a big percentage of negative thoughts because our brain is primed for survival. And when our brain searches for negative things, it does it automatically. So it doesn't require your conscious effort to search for negative things. Your brain will do it, without you making an effort towards it. That's why it's really easy to be drawn into negative news. It's really easy to share and to spread the frightening messages, because this is what we are primed as biological beings for our survival. But in order to thrive in our lives, we should consciously understand what helps us thrive and what's not. Of course, for example, nowadays we have a situation of the virus. And it means that, yes, we should be aware of this. We should wash our hands and practice physical distancing. But at the same time, too much of the negative thoughts will make your brain just elaborate on the worst case scenarios that can happen. And you don't need to repeat and to engrave in your brain this worst case scenarios. Yes. So that's why it's really, it's a good strategy to be aware about what's going on, but not going too deep into statistics like who dies when and what. Because, if we go this route, who dies where and when and why, like millions of people die every day. It's just the reality. And if we are to learn about all of this, probably we will find ourselves in a pretty depressed state. But we don't need this, because we want a satisfactory and happy life. I think this is the goal of all goals, to live peacefully, happily, and to basically have something to remember and to be grateful for at the end of our lives. I noticed that this big picture perspective really helps people to kind of like zoom out and to see that on the big picture, everything is all right. If we are alive, everything is all right. Resilience, my favorite thing. Basically, if every single person can master resilience, I think our world will become a much better place. And it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness, aka managing stress. Okay, stress response, fight or flight. I'm sure everybody studied it at school, but let's just recap. So thousands of years ago, we had physical threats walking around, like lions, tigers, all these predators who were, you know, competing with people for the food and for other things. And that's why our brain evolutionized in a way that we were ready, basically at any time during our days, to fight or flight. And every single threat were like a trigger to activate all our bodily resources to either prepare, you know, to physically fight to death or to run away. And this is what happens inside. So inside, when we activate our stress response, we become alert. Our heart starts to pump blood kind of like several times faster than in normal circumstances. You know, our organs become activated, and in many cases, people can do like extraordinary things when they are under severe stress. That's why we see a lot of examples when, for example, somebody, you know, were falling under the car, and then somebody came in and pulled like a person from this car really fast. So these superhero abilities, they are activated under severe stress. And I was, I also noticed these abilities in myself, because when I was in physically threatening situations, my body was doing like the craziest thing ever. But guess what's happening when we are activating fight or flight response? We wear out our body. It requires so much energy to kind of like produce this bodily reaction that if we are to act every single day in such a state, we won't live long. And when we have this type of fight or flight mode during, you know, a kind of like a prolonged period of time, our immune system just doesn't have the power to fight off any illnesses, viruses, and etc. So what happens nowadays? Nowadays, we don't have any physical threats, not anymore. I mean, somewhere I'm sure they are, but not kind of like in a grand scheme of things. In a civilized world, we don't have this, fortunately. But we have all types of psychological threats. We have bad emails from our bosses, we have denials, we have breakups, we have, you know, all the psychological threats that happen that are not physically threatening, but they still put us in a fight or flight mode. So nowadays, we don't need a tiger to frighten us in order to go in fight or flight mode. It just requires for us to receive some bad news, or to think that our career goes the wrong way, or to think that we are fat or ugly or useless, or whatever other dark thoughts are, you know, visiting us. And when we are upset and depressed and thinking all these thoughts that do not help us, you know, go forward, go for our dreams and goals, we put in ourselves in fight or flight, and inside us happens the same thing. Our body is agitated, our chest is tight, our muscles become tight. That's why we have such tight bodies right now, like generally across the whole population, because we store all these emotions within ourselves, and we are not using this physical power to, you know, fight or flight. We do not use it. So that's why people who are doing like high intensity trainings, and they are really grateful for this, because it helps this excess energy of stress, which is stored in our body, basically to be released without without having to deal with the consequences. And eventually what you practice grows stronger. And this quote I've heard at a really awesome TED Talk about mindfulness. This TED Talk was given by a good friend of mine, Dr. Shona Shapiro. She's a doctor, neuroscience doctor at Berkeley University. I used to live in San Francisco, and this is where, you know, I was encountering professors, and I work with professors from Stanford and Berkeley. And nowadays I live in Los Angeles, but we're still good friends. And basically her life's work is to bring awareness to people to understand that whatever you do on a daily basis, every decision you make, it's your practice. So our life is our practice, our choices are our practices. And what you practice, so everything that you do more than once, it grows stronger. So every single thought that you have, that your career goes the wrong way, that your relationships are not, you know, meeting your expectations, so some people don't meet your expectations, you practice this. And when you practice it, it grows stronger. Food for thought. Okay, brainwaves. So you remember in the beginning, I told you that our neurons in our brain, they are communicating with electricity. And so of course, the quality of this electricity, it produces the certain state of our brain. And we have several brainwave states. And from one state to another state, our experience is so different. For example, when we are in conscious and aware state, we have beta brain waves. And these beta brain waves, they are pretty fast. They are, you know, directed towards external focus, and they help us do things that we do. But kind of like the negative side of this is that when we are in one state of brain waves for a prolonged period of time, we don't give space for our brain to create a balance, because a balance is created when we are experiencing all of these brainwave states during a day. And we can't be all the time in this like high focus beta mode, because, you know, we have kind of like a threshold where every type of brainwave, it becomes the bad one. So the beta brainwave becomes bad when you are consciously aware, focused, but at the same time you experience stress, or you have the dark thoughts. And in this case, your brain waves become incoherent. So neurons start to communicate chaotically, not synchronized. And in this brainwave state, it's really easy to, you know, feel agitated. And this agitation basically lowers the barrier of penetration of different illnesses and viruses. So breath work and meditation, any types of mental exercises, they are tools which help us put in different brainwave states, which help us create coherence in our brain. And when we create this coherence, our brain and body start to feel better, and our resistance towards different attacks in our bodies and immune system, you know, becomes stronger. So what are the benefits of breath work? There are physical benefits and there are mental benefits, because physical and mental is connected a lot. So from physical benefits, it reduces blood pressure, it lowers cortisol, and it stabilizes heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the pattern our heart is pumping. So when our heart pumps incoherently, this is where this is where, you know, diseases are created. Because when our heart works too much, we have a higher chance of, you know, having kind of like larger susceptibility to autoimmune conditions and to other chronic conditions that can be developed. Mental benefits are, it helps recover from chronic stress, anxiety. It increases attention, and it releases tension from our bodies. So basically, when we do breath work, we process whatever our body has an excess of. So, for example, if you have excess of anger, we process anger, and some people start to feel really angry during breath work. Some people start to feel like really sad. Some people start to feel like really irritated. And these emotions, they're just brought from within, and we are processing them during our exercises. And I really love this quote by Dr. Alan Hobson. He is leading brain researcher at Harvard University. And he says that the breath is the link between involuntary and voluntary processes in our body. And this is a pretty interesting thing if you think about that. We did not design our bodies, and we are not consciously giving different tasks to our body. So our digestion works without our awareness, our heart beats without our awareness, our cells are dividing without our awareness, our hair grows without our awareness. So basically we are pretty automated machines as humans, biological machines, and we have a little bit control of course, the way we move our body. Yes, we can train ourselves to move the body different way. We can train ourselves to move our muscles different way. But the only bridge between internal processes that we do not control is the breath. Because the breath is the key to control your heartbeat. And some people who practice breath work for years, they can consciously control their heartbeat, which is amazing. I think it's like a ninja level type of abilities, but they all can be developed with practice, because what we practice, it grows stronger. And if we practice more conscious and aware breath, we make it stronger. And when we practice it long enough, it starts to happen automatically, because our brain is always optimizing towards automation, aka energy conservation. Now let's think about my favorite thing. What I believe in is that as long as we have something we are striving to, something that we want to achieve, something that we want to visit, to travel, to experience, this is the best way to be in this life, because this is what gives the life force. And you can see, for example, some people who don't want anything in life, who just live their lives day by day without no definite purpose, they are struggling, and they're struggling from inside. So I want to encourage every single person from 5 years old to like 100 years old to have a dream, to have something that they want, and to have something their life is leading towards. And recently I finally it required some work. I encouraged my grandma. She's 79 years old. I encourage her to, start approaching this life from the place of enthusiasm, and not from the place like, oh my God, I'm so sick, I have this sick, that sick, I just sit at home, and all these things that many people do. They just become bored. So we reframed her brain, and now she started to date. My granddad, he unfortunately passed away more than 10 years ago, and she was alone like for the last 10 years, completely alone. And now she's dating, and she has something to strive for. And this man, he gives her flowers and brings her to movies and all these good things. She found a job. She now works as a gardener. But I mean, everything gives her purpose. And sometimes people kind of like have no desires and no dreams even at 30 years old, like 40 years old or 50 years old, when they're pretty young. So right now, picture in your mind, and I'm sure all of you who listens to this webinar right now, you all have dreams and desires, because you are on your personal growth journey, and you already know what does it mean to live a life which is exciting and which is full of enthusiasm. So close your eyes or keep them open and think about what do you want the most. It can be anything. It can be related to your love life, to your career, to your health, to your family, to your contribution to society, to charitable work that you want to do, to projects that you want to bring into life. Like anything that comes first. Don't overthink it. And imagine that you just received this. Imagine that whatever you pictured in your mind, you just received this. If it was a travel around the globe, imagine the tickets are on your email. If it was like a 5-bedroom house near the ocean, imagine done. And so right now, our brain can play a really tricky thing, and you may not notice from the first glimpse, but let me tell you what happens. So when we have these big dreams or small dreams, doesn't matter, something that you really want, but it's not happening in your life, just, circumstances are not aligning, maybe for years. It means that we have inside us some kind of internal conflict or some kind of fear that prevents us to making the most optimized actions towards this dream. And what I notice in 99% cases with my clients, that they have some underlying fears that they, unconsciously think about when they imagine that their dream comes true. So for example, I had a client and he really wanted to buy a nice property for his family in Italy. And when we did this exercise with him, we pictured that he already received this property, he already owns it. And then his fears start to come up. He started to think like, oh my God, what if I can't pay the taxes for this property? Oh my God, what if this property, what if thieves come to this property and steal everything? Or what if the fire will happen? Or what if his kids, will miss all their friends from school because they will be living kind of like in a more suburban area? So all these fears, they seem small, but at the same time, they undermine the power of the dream. Because imagine this push and pull. If your dream is in the middle and your fears pull it back and you want to pull it forward, and essentially you become stuck. And in the state of stuck, actions are really hard to do, or just circumstances are not coming up. Another client of mine that I have, we were working on the relationships. And for some reason, she had one relationship after the other. It was not working. And then we started to track what were her fears around the relationship. And she really wanted, to start a family, to get married. She was 36 at that point, years old. So, time to have kids for somebody who wants it. And eventually we found out that she was fearful of a lifetime commitment. It was really threatening to her. And she was basically escaping every relationship when it started to get serious. And until we, track down this fear and track down where it grows and why does she have this fear in the first place, we were able, to establish a relationship. So now she's finally married and pregnant, which I'm very happy for her. So yeah, now think about your top fears, which are connected to this dream. What are they? What you possibly can be fearful about, yeah? And sometimes we can pick up common fears like, oh, I don't know what will be the next month because now is quarantine all over the world. Maybe I'll lose my job, or maybe, something happens. So even these fears, which are totally make sense, and all fears, they make sense. There is no fears which do not make sense. Otherwise we won't have them. We don't want to, to think ourselves that we are like ridiculous. But at the same time, when we are verbalizing our fears, we kind of like disarm them. And this is where I see many people start to be fearful about their fears, because it is said that it is a common thought that if you verbalize your fears, they will manifest pretty fast. But this is the biggest misconception that I hear all the time. And it's, you know, it's proven. Like when you are going through cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the exercises is actually to put your fears on paper and to look at them, and then to draw some kind of an image which will you know, show you the schematic look of your fear. So kind of like extract from your subconscious how your fear looks like. But right now it's just enough to put them down on paper and to look at them and to see that those are just your fears, and those fears are really unique to you. And now we will do a special breathwork exercise, which will help us to process these fears, which is pretty exciting, because when you do it right away, it can be pretty powerful. Yes, and of course, every fear can become an obsession. If we're thinking about our fears over and over again and can't release them, they activate, which is really kind of like straightforward, something that you give your energy towards, you activate it in your life. So if you think about why you can't, or why you shouldn't, or why it's a bad idea, you give energy towards that route. But if you think about what is the opportunity, why do I have this, how can I make it better, you basically turn all questions upside down. And instead of saying to yourself, I can't do this, you can say, how can I do this? And this is how you activate your brain to be your ally rather than to pull you back, because, you know, your brain was threatened for thousands of years before. Okay. One of my favorite breathing exercises is breathe like your life depends on it. And it's a variation of holotropic breath. I think you may have heard about this type of breath. It's a pretty intense breath work for processing our dark emotions and feelings. But this is, we'll step it up. And I like this version much more than a standard holotropic breath. It worked wonders in my life. So what you do, let me just put a little bit down the camera. We'll learn the technique first. So just stand on your two legs. Put your feet shoulder width apart, and then put one hand on your belly, just below your solar plexus, and one hand on your chest. Doesn't matter which hand goes where, left or right. And this breath, it consists of 2 inhales and 1 exhale. We inhale and exhale through the mouth. So inhale into your belly, inhale into your chest, exhale. Inhale into your belly, into your chest, exhale. Everything happens through your mouth. Inhale through your belly, through your chest, exhale. Let's practice 5 more breaths like that, so you get it. So through your belly, when you breathe through your belly, you kind of like push your hand forward. You want to push your hand, so like a pregnant belly. So you push your belly forward, then chest, and then exhale. Okay, now I will turn on the music and we'll do it and put on the timer. And we'll do it for 7 minutes. Okay, let me see how I can. Okay. One moment, just adjusting the sharing. Okay. I hope you hear the sound. Now I'm just doing the timer. 7 minutes that I prepared. And we start on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Into your belly, into your chest. Exhale. Belly, chest. Exhale. Belly, chest. Exhale. Close your eyes. I will just guide you with my voice. Belly, chest, exhale. Belly, chest, exhale. Belly, chest, exhale. Belly, chest, exhale. Inhale, belly, chest, exhale. Into your belly, to your chest, exhale. To your belly, to your chest, exhale. To your belly, to your chest, exhale. Now start to breathe on your own, just with the music, without my guidance. You can choose your pace. See what emotions can come up. Inhale through your mouth. Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your belly, through your chest. Exhale. Your body may want to move. It's fine, let it move. Listen to the drum beat. Right now, oxygen starts to flow. Your brain becomes really oxygenated. Your blood starts to have more oxygen too. Tensions and emotions that we are stored in our body may come up. In a couple of minutes, you can start experiencing either uncontrollable laughter, or people start to cry, or to shout. Just see what's coming up for you. The fears that we thought that are connected to our biggest dream, they are processing right now. We are removing them from our body. The place we store all our emotion experiences. We're breathing like our life depends on it. Don't stop. You may slow down, but don't stop. We have 4 more minutes to go. We still have about 2 minutes to go. Continue breathing. Inhale, inhale, exhale. Notice whatever comes up. We have 1 more minute to go. Just 40 more seconds. Continue your breath. Feel what your body is feeling. Let it feel this way. 25 seconds. Seconds. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Slow down. Slow down your breath. You may keep your eyes closed. Couple of deep inhales and exhales through your nose. Inhale, feel yourself all the way up. Exhale through your mouth, let it go. 3 more breaths like that. Inhale all the way up. Exhale, let it go. 2 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Wow. Wow, this was pretty intense. Let me pull up my presentation back online. This was the first exercise. You may feel a little bit agitated. Just rub your hands together like that. Together until your hands feel pretty hot. Feel like all your negative energy, all the feelings that come up that we're processing, they are right here, right there. Activate them and then push them through. Just let them go through your hands and into the ground. Oh, this was awesome. So in normal world, this exercise should be done for 30 minutes for this full reset. In the virtual environment, especially in the group one, I can't see your faces. I can't see how your body moves. You know, I would love to give you personal feedback, but I just can't because I don't see you. But I hope you will share what was happening if something came up when we have Q&A. This is a pretty short breath. It's the last thing before we move on to the Q&A session. So it is more kind of like focusing one. It is the breath that you want to do probably in the morning in order for your brain to become sharp and alert, but it's not super energizing. So if you do it in the evening, it's also no worries. You may be able to sleep. And this breath is used in the Wim Hof method. And Wim Hof method is a method of building your bodily resilience. Those basically are these people who are meditating in snow or like on an ice rock or just in the cold ice bath. And this breath helps you to focus not on the pain, but on something that you direct your mind towards. And also this breath helps to increase the capacity of your lungs, and we'll now feel it real time. So we'll do it just for 2 rounds this time, not for 5 rounds like I have it on the slide. And I will need the timer for this too. So it goes this way. For 30 breaths, we will inhale through our nose. Just inhale through your chest, normal single inhale, and then exhale through your nose. So like that. Inhale and exhale. We'll do it at a faster pace, so not in the slow pace that we are breathing during the meditations, but in a little bit faster pace. And I will count this for you. And then after the 30th breath, we will hold our breath for how long we can. Ideally, it should be 2 minutes or 3 minutes. This is when people are training themselves in terms of their breath work and concentration. They're able to, enlarge this kind of like capacity of time without oxygen. But right now we just do, 1 minute is already be fine. So you can see where you're at. Okay, let's start our 30 breaths. Inhale, exhale, 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 inhale, exhale. 15 more left. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. 10 more left. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. 5 more left. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. 2 more left. Inhale, exhale. After the last exhale, we'll hold our breath. Inhale, exhale, then hold your breath. We'll hold our breaths for a minute or longer if you can. You may continue to hold your breath for another 10-20 seconds just to feel where you're at. What is your capacity for holding breath right now? But basically, this is the exercise to increase, kind of like to become sharper and to increase focus. We are already at 2 p.m. I know we started like 5 minutes later, but I want to open it up. I think we got a pretty good idea about these two types of breath. So let's open up for questions and answers. Oh, yes. And we will send a follow-up email for you. You're all invited to join my free 10 days group coaching thing that I'm hosting online starting April 1st. I think it's this Wednesday. And it will be so much fun. We'll be giving you all these different exercises and tools and holding you accountable. But we'll send you a follow-up email about that, or you can go just to thedreamsprint.com. It's the name of my signature program, and sign up for a free 10 days there. Okay, questions and answers. Let me see the chat. What was the music for soundtrack you used? Yes, I can send the link. It was just drums. I literally just on SoundCloud find something that won't be interrupted by advertising like Spotify or YouTube. But I can send this track. It's just drums. If you put in the soundcloud.com drums, I'm sure you will land on something similar. This one? For sure. Yeah. This is the last breathwork exercise that we did. Is it normal to feel very lightheaded during this? Hedy asks. Yes, it's normal to feel lightheaded. It's very normal because your body starts to receive oxygen in the amounts that you've never received before. And this is the first step. What your body feels, you become lightheaded, then some emotions start to come up. And also really interesting, the inventor of this type of breathwork, this type of family of breathwork, it's called holotropic breathwork. It's is one doctor, and this doctor was studying basically LSD and different types of hallucinogenic drugs. But what he found out that when people were doing this exercise for long enough, they were in the same states like people on drugs. So you can get really high with the breath work, but without the toll on your, without kind of like the health toll that people who use drugs may experience. Abigail asks, are both breathworks have different results? Do they both are aimed for the same goal? Yes, they have different purposes. So the first one, the intense one, it is done to process negative feelings and emotions. So it's kind of like the cleanse, the detox, like the juicing of your mind. And it should be done once a week. I won't recommend to do it daily. The second breath work with 30 inhales and exhales and then holding your breath, it is great to accelerate the sharpness of your mind and to be able to increase your focus. So I do this breath work before I'm in some type of a creative mode and I need, just to put my brain into right state. So I do this. Kyron asks, this was amazing. Thank you very much. Felt my whole body vibrate at one point. Had a question about the question, what do you want the most? Was wondering, what if my dream is layered and multifaceted? Does it have to be simple and straightforward only? No, dreams are not, our dreams, our desires, they're not straightforward. But what I can say is that the more clear you have your dream, the more measurable, the more clear it is, the higher chance you have of actually executing this dream. or attracting this dream into your life. So imagine like our brain is this navigation machine like Google Maps. And if you put in the Google Maps, for example, Los Angeles, just Los Angeles, it will pick the most random point in Los Angeles. And so this is how the vague dreams look like. They kind of like, you know where I want to go, but you don't know where specifically. But when you know the specific destination, for example, you put like, I don't know, the star of Marilyn Monroe on the Hollywood Walk, and you will land exactly there. So yeah, with my clients, I help them to get this clarity without creating a limitation, because some people are afraid that, oh my God, if I think too specific, I think I create a limit for myself. This is not true. There is a healthy balance between, clarity and limits that you create for yourself, if it makes sense. 12. Slide 12. I hope you see this. I'm trying to, let me see. Oh, great. Awesome. Justin, can you show? Yes. Anna, I loved your topic. Thank you for this. Can you explain? Thank you, Anna. Can you explain why when we feel depressed and you have these moments when you just collapse and cry that can go on for longer even after the initial event that triggered you is already over? How does the brain work in this situation? Oh, yes. The answer is it's normal, because our brain, it doesn't distinguish reality from imagination. And this is one of the craziest things, is that there was a research done when people, there was like one focus group, they were playing a piano, and their brain was scanned, the activity of their brain, the particular regions that are firing up in the brain was scanned during the time when they played the piano. And then the same group, after they played the piano, they were asked, without not moving their body, just sitting in the room without any piano, to think about how they were playing a piano. And the craziest thing is that the brain pattern was absolutely the same. The emotions that they were feeling were absolutely the same. So every time we recall a situation, especially a traumatic event, and traumatic event, it can engrave in our mind pretty deep, because when something is charged with a strong emotion, we are literally reliving this event over and over again, because the emotion was so strong. Our memory card recorded it, and every time we see something that is associated with this event, or every time we just recall it because it's so sharp in our minds, we experience the same things as we were experiencing this again over and over again. It also called post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is when you playing in your mind some kind of event, or you're not consciously playing it, you just start to have these glimpses of this event for no reason. And of course, it's a very depressing state to be in. There is a special method on how you get yourself out of this. I was doing it with some of my clients, and it's really interesting how our brains, store information and then create all this memories. And I can talk about like fake memories on a different workshop, but also there is a thing that when traumatic event happens, the traumatic event itself is, yes, we can recall it and when we can experience the same emotions, but also there is a high chance that we create false memories around these traumatic events. And because we can create false memories, we can create them both to make things worse and to make things better. Hope it helps. Abigail, not a question, just a fun fact. With the first breath work, I had to laugh so hard that someone laughed. Yes, I saw this. Like one client that I was doing one-on-one with her, and she started just to laugh uncontrollably, very loud. It was the first time I saw how people like laugh from their hearts so loud and like so passionate, and it happens. For the second breathwork slide says mouth, but we did it through nose. Oh yes, great catch. Yes, it should be through the nose, this one. This one specifically through the nose. And the first one is through your mouth. Great catch. Work from home. Okay. Can you give some information and advice on traumatic events as you were talking? On traumatic events as you were talking. You know, it just depends on the specific situation. Like what general information I can give? The general information is for you to, first of all, realize that, yes, this is a traumatic event, and realize that every time you recall this traumatic event, you relive it, and your brain and your body feel the same way as it was happening. And with this realization, you can already, when you are recalling this traumatic event again, you can ask yourself, does it serve me the purpose? Does it help me? Or does it not? And every time you spot yourself experiencing this traumatic event or thinking about this traumatic event over and over again, you can train your mind to choose a different route. This is kind of like the general advice. But of course, it just depends on the severity of the traumatic event. Yes, it just depends on what exactly happened and what type of emotion are charged there. So, but the general advice is to retrain and redirect your mind every time when it wanders to the darkest places. And you know, our mind, if it's untrained, it starts to wander to the darkest places possible, and you can find yourself in a pretty dark place if you're not, you know, bringing awareness to what happens in your internal world. When you said to write down and visualize your dreams and identify your fears, how does it correlate to breathing exercises? Yes, great question. So the first breath work that we did, it is designed to process our fears, our negative emotions, our anger. So when we think about that we want something, then we write down the fears. We kind of like put them out of our mind and on paper. And then we do the breath work to process these feelings. This is how we synchronize our brain and our body, and we let them know that this is the direction that we want to go. And the things that are fearful, they're not so fearful. And this is what we do to process them. For example, how someone breaks up with you over, for example, how someone breaks up with you over, or how your caretaker used to treat you or say to you. Sometimes situations in life can bring up past memories.
I don't know. I was just trying to give example. Tatiana asked about the advice on traumatic events. So I'm just saying that, like, let's say, like, you know, your ex-boyfriend like broke up with you and how the relationship ended. Like sometimes, you know, that was a traumatic experience that you experienced, and sometimes that can bring up, you know, when you meet someone and they kind of have similar sort of pattern, and it kind of bring up those past fears. And maybe, like, you know, like usually like it's probably different because it's a different scenario and it's a different person, but you know, because we have those fears deeply embedded in our heart and, you know, in us, is kind of bring up those past memories. And that's what you're saying about, like, the, you know, how we create like fake memories or like good memories. Sometimes we just kind of create those, like our insecurities and fears caused by the traumatic experience can influence how we perceive things that are happening in our life, or falsely predict how things are going to turn out, you know, and our insecurities are just being like having a play in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I agree with you. Is that if you were treated badly once, yes, but by some person, of course, every single new interaction which a little bit resembles the traumatic one, it would bring you on the same pattern. That's why, for example, women who were, you know, harassed yeah, like in a bad way, some kind of violence was used, they just can't tolerate any more interactions with men at all. And it becomes a real trauma when a person can't live normal life because of this flashbacks that happen all the time.
Yeah,
But there
and
are ways.
no, and I think what you talk about, like create like the memories that we create, and that's like in another term, like other people might say like the stories that we tell ourselves, you know, and those are the stories that we can like look at and like learn to like rewrite the story.
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true. Hattie, I have many negative thoughts a day. With the second breath work we did help stop me thinking these thoughts. So the second breath work is for focus, and it's for put your in a creative state of mind, for dealing with negative thoughts and process negative feelings. That it's the first breath work, this intense one. So this intense one can bring up these thoughts and can make your experience even, stronger of experiencing negative thoughts, but at the same time you would process them. And when you process them long enough, this is how you get rid of them. But of course, it's not like one size fits all thing. Of course, it's always a series of tools that you use in order to reframe your thinking from negative to neutral and then to positive. You can't go, from negative to positive. It's just a big jump. I can, sometimes with my clients, I use this. It's called the emotional charge, not the table, just emotional charge scale. And it literally shows you the different frequencies on which different emotions live. And the idea is that you can move on the scale very gradually. For example, from anger and from irritation and from rage, you can't move to happy in one sprint. But what you can do, from anger, you can move to boredom. Yes, you can move to disappointment. And from disappointment and boredom, you can move to, being neutral. And from being neutral, you can move to feeling calm. And then you, step by step, you find yourself on a higher place at emotional scale. Yes, that's correct, Benny. First exercise once a week, and the second one is when you have to focus. It really helps to create this focus without, being distracted. Well, welcome. Any other questions? Also, you can talk if you want. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, Kanika, hope I pronounce your name correctly. Thank you. What are your thoughts on healthy resilience versus healthy resilience versus healthy resilience? Taking on too much, staying for too long. How can you discern when you're being healthy and I don't understand the question. If you can elaborate. Oh, healthy versus unhealthy resilience. What would be an example of unhealthy resilience? I don't get it. Mo, do you understand the question?
I think, are you talking about like setting boundaries? Is that what I feel like you're talking about? Like unhealthy resilience, maybe maybe when we're trying to put up with something that we shouldn't, like setting boundaries. Yeah,
We do.
Okay, yes, that's what I mean. Like healthy resilience, meaning like what you talked about, but then unhealthy, I like that you say boundaries. And if you're in a relationship for too long and you're like, okay, I can handle this, like how are you able to tell when you're being resilient and it's good for you, and then when you should kind of take a step back to see, is this benefiting me, or am I just trying to take on so much, if that makes sense?
Totally makes sense. Mo, do you want to answer?
Yeah. Hold on, let me think.
Yeah, I can answer too. I have my experience with this healthy boundaries. So my experience with that first, you know, when I started to even think about boundaries is when I got married, and my life really changed because my husband was super jealous. You know, in the first year, he was like crazy jealous, and I didn't know what are the rules because I was never married before, and I kind of like was putting up with this. He was saying like, okay, don't have friends who are men and all this stuff, and then I was agreeing to that, you know, kind of like silently agreeing to that. And at some point I realized that this is not okay. This is not what I want to do. This is not who I am to be. I want to have male friends. I want, you know, to be able to build relationships, like friendly ones and business ones, with whomever I want, doesn't matter the gender. And I started to build this boundary without aggression, without anger, without blame. I didn't come to my husband and just started to blame him. Oh my God, you did so bad to me. Why did you do this? I learned about how to create healthy boundaries and just established a series of conversations that were, you know, saying that why things should happen another way. And let's kind of like collaborate on this, because this is what will make me feel better. And this is in your interest to make me feel better, and see how the person reacts. So it's all about like nonviolent communication, and all about like speaking from your feelings rather than telling what other person does wrong, if it makes sense.
Yeah, actually, from my personal experience, I realized at one point it was because in my own shadow, dealing with my frustration in a relationship, and I had a look at how I reacted to what I wasn't happy with, and I realized that the way I reacted wasn't good. And then I started looking at like, why did I react that way? Where did I learn that from? And I also realized from that reflection that I learned that from my mother. Like when I was a teenager, I and my mom we argued a lot, and my mom, she was always over worried, and she would say mean things because she was over worried. And I kind of realized that where I learned that from, unconsciously I adopted the way I reacted to unpleasant situations. So when I realized that, sometimes my mom just over worried, and then she sent me like random messages, like, you know, expressing her concerns, and it kind of triggered me. But I kind of grew from that, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm not that teenage girl anymore who would just say mean things back because she said mean things to me. So I paused and I took a deep breath, and I'm like, Mom, you know, let me ask you one thing. Where did you learn the way to speak like this? And it was like it's something that I never talked to my mom like this before. And I kind of was like, did you learn this from your mom? And she admitted it, that she learned it from her grandmother. And that's when I was like, you know, I think we need to learn to set boundaries amongst, like, between each other. Like, you know, we can't say mean things to each other. You can't say mean things to other people. And it was kind of nerve-wracking at first to like confront my mom like this. But like, honestly, my mom, like, she stopped. And then like a few months after that, like every time she sent me a message and I didn't have a look at it, and then when I had a look at it, she already unsent it. So I was like, oh, okay, mom was gonna send something. But like she actually started to like learn to like, oh wait, actually that's right, like I should learn to like not say mean things, and like just be more like patient and calm, and like Mo just set a boundary with me. Like, so I started teaching mom to like set boundaries with other people in her life too. And it just been like the whole like this like life-changing experience, like between like me and my mom, and like I think everyone in the family. And you know, sometimes it's kind of scary to tell people like, this is my boundary, you know, but then, and they might be shocked because, you know, you've never set boundaries with them before, but then they start to learn, and then they start to respect your boundaries, and that just actually makes your relationship stronger.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Mo. This is, I think parents are our karma, honestly. But the thing is that when we learn how to communicate with our parents and with our loved ones in a way that it's kind, I think this is the highest point of personal development is when you're able to spend a lot of time with the family without getting angry or irritated or wanting to, you know, change them and show them the better way. So can totally relate to that.
Yeah, and I feel like this is something that I and like my friends talk a lot about. We're like, you know, we need to be each other's mirror, because other people that are not close friends are probably not going to be mirrors for us, and it's only your close friends that, like, you know, like care enough to tell you what your weaknesses are, what your shortcomings are, and we should, you know, like be open-minded enough to not get mad at them and be thankful that they tell you that, because no one's going to tell you except your close friends and family. So I think, you know, it's something that, yeah, I don't know, that's just my view anyway. So
Yeah, we have a lot of like really kind messages in the chat. Thank you guys for your kind messages. We also loved having you on this session. I think it's amazing when, you know, we can just chat like that, and when you can pop up and ask questions. I think it's such a valuable experience to learn from one another, from each other's experiences. We are glad that our stories and examples resonated, because we're all humans. We all go through the same things pretty much, same problems, same challenges. Of course they vary, but human experiences is human experience.
yeah, actually talking about resilience in relationships, like have you guys read the book like Men Like Bitches? What's it called? Like Why Men Like Bitches, something like that. And there's this one girl that I follow on YouTube as well, and she talks a lot about setting boundaries and how we need to show men how they should respect us. And I think it's the earlier we can show that in relationships, the better, because it basically sets the tone for them and they follow that, you know. So I think if we've never done that, it's hard to implement that. But once we start getting used to doing that and speak about our boundaries in a really soft and sweet way, I think this is really important, because if we don't tell them about our boundaries in a sweet manner, they can get really defensive, and then they put a wall up, right? And then they don't listen to us. But then if we just know how to communicate really calmly and sweetly and tell them what we need, then I think they'll respect us, they'll listen to us. But it's all practice. You need to practice that.
Definitely. And also the formula that that works all the time for setting boundaries with people is that, for example, we want to set boundaries when something we don't like that people do, and this is normal. So the formula is, first you say how you feel. So for example, if you're irritated that your partner doesn't clean up after himself or whatever, or herself, you say that, you know, I feel really upset when I see dirty dishes, and it makes me feel uncomfortable, and it makes me feel like you're not valuing my work. And then you say, in the next time, can you please just clean up after yourself, and I will feel much better, and it will, you know, it will require not a lot of efforts from you, but my state will be so much better. So when you say it in this formula, first you say how you feel, then what you want, then you kind of like say that they can do it, and it's not a super hard job for them. In this case, people are not in the defensive mode, and they can actually listen to you, because they always resonate with your feelings rather than when you tell them what you should do.
Yeah, I think this is something like, I have this friend named Laura, and she's like so good at like I was like, you need to teach me how to communicate with men. Like she just nailed it. Like she knows how to like get her husband to do what she wants in a way that makes him feel like it's his idea. And it's, you know, it's something that I'm like, I need to practice it. Like I need to practice being able to speak sweetly and calmly about what I want. And get them to do what I want and they think it's like their idea.
Yeah, it's also a healthy balance between like boundary and manipulation, because I'm from the Russian culture, and in Russian culture is so common, like to have this online courses and programs, how to manipulate men so they give you nice presents and stuff like that, how make your boyfriend buy you a Tiffany ring. And it's a healthy balance between like setting boundaries and actually like manipulating that person. Because I think manipulation, when you are messing with somebody else's free will, it's not something that gets you forward in life. Just what I observed.
Yeah. And I think like another thing, I could go on and on forever about relationships, but I think like another thing that like, you know, observing from my own experience, from my girlfriend's experience, it's like learning to give men space, especially after like heavy discussions or something emotional, is like crucial. Like we can learn, and it's really hard for us women to give men space. And it's also, again, we need to practice this. And like once we can learn to give men space, just a space that like can cure everything, and space can like really can cure everything in relationship. If you learn to give them space and like, okay, you need time to think about this, you need time to process this, you need time to deal with your stress. I understand. Yeah.
Eldon asked about that he didn't feel any emotions, or she, I don't know what's this name. I didn't have any emotions on surface, but I did felt a lot of tension on my shoulders. Is that normal? Yes. So I was telling that we store a lot of emotions in our bodies, and our bodies, they get tense. Those are unprocessed emotions that we store. And on shoulders, we store a lot of like anxiety and anger. And it's normal to have feeling the exaggeration of the tension first, but then when you do it long enough, you're able to release it and finally feel the feelings. It means that you bury your feelings so deep inside that until your shoulders kind of like widen and broaden, you can't feel these feelings. Awesome. Oh, I receive private messages. It's so lovely. Thank you, Carly. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're already like 30 minutes over. Okay, guys, maybe, yeah, I'm sure we'll see everybody the next time on another virtual event, but it was so much fun. Thank you more for having me, and thank you for all of you for being here and for practicing and for asking questions.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay.